Day show for the DNVR Avalanche podcast in the Toyota Lounge, powered by your Front Range Toyota dealerships. And of course, we are presented by Bet365. We got Big E and Rudo in studio and AJ joining us, calling in. It's going to be kind of a hodgepodge show, just talking things, maybe Western Conference, circling around the Avs, what's going on, all of that. We'll get into a couple of different angles, but I wanted to start with this one. And unfortunately, this is not a situation that the Avs are strangers to. This is something that they're probably far too familiar with, but I'm tired of injuries. And not that there's anyone added to the injury list or anything, but I mean, let me ask you two. Have you guys ever experienced a team that has been as consistently injured as the Avs have post Cup run?
Go ahead. Aji.
I mean, I can't say that I pay enough attention to other teams.
Sure.
After their cup runs, to really say that, but I know that 2 years ago was real bad. Last year was fine. Last year wasn't really a big deal, and then this year's been a disaster. So, I'm also over it. I'm also over being like, well, if they had their full lineup, look how they could be really good, because it just feels like they're not quite there yet. But then you're like, oh, well, add these guys to your lineup and this guy that's in your top six is now on your third line. Oh, that's pretty good, right? Yeah, you like that. Sure. Oh, that sounds great. I don't know, man. I'm tired of it. Just get healthy and start winning games.
Yeah, I think I'll be honest, for me, it's, been around this league for so long, I don't recall seeing anything like this. I mean, it's almost comical. Yeah. It really is. I think to Bednar, at times, it feels comical. I think he's handled, that's why I say you should win to Jack Adams. I do believe it. That is not, I do believe it. It's not normal. And top heavy too. Sometimes you can skew those, right? It's, for example, a team feels that their man games lost. For example, if Barons would have been part of those man games,
sure.
You know what I mean? And it's like,
if you
look, we lost too.
You could count Tucker Poolman on
Tucker
those.
Poolman. Come on. I mean, we're talking about high end, top of the lineup, forwards, Ds. It's not normal. It's comical. First thing yesterday, Louis DeBrusque, right? Obviously covers the Oilers and stuff. It's right. It's the same comment. Whoever comes in that building, it's like, wow, what a absolute gong show of an injury, list this season for this team. And it's who's playing tonight, and they throw their hands up. So it's not normal. And they've never used it as an excuse, which is why, I commend them. But man, oh man, you're only human sometimes. I mean, you got to be human at times, and then just kind of feel disappointed a little bit. And go man, this has got to stop.
Even if you exclude Landeskog, I think the Avs have had their full top six forwards for 25 minutes of hockey this year.
I was going to say, it's not one game. I know that.
Yeah. The one game that they were all healthy, they didn't finish healthy, and it was come on, man. And you can, I think we're seeing that impact on, the McKinnons and Rantanen and Makars of the world, that extra. They're so taxed.
There's some burnout there for sure.
Yeah, and you can see that every time you try and elevate Logan O'Connor and Yoel Kiviranta into okay, this is our second line, right? This is the line that we trust the second most right now, and then they go out there against a skilled line, they get their head kicked in, and you're like, bleh! Okay, hard ceiling, and like you can live with like the injury issues is kind of out of your control.
Yeah.
Every year you have guys that play great, that outperform expectations, like a Kiviranta, and guys that fall short of expectations, like what we're seeing with Casey Middlestat right now.
Yep.
And like that stuff is normal. Like that variance in player level, that it happens. It's fine. But for the injuries to constantly be hampering them, where you're like, we don't even know who they are. We haven't had like a nice 10-game stretch where, yeah, we've gotten to see Colorado's forward core actually healthy. Let's see what this looks like. No idea. It's a total mystery.
The exact conversation you're having. A fully healthy Avs forward core, again, not even including Landeskog, a fully healthy Avs forward core means that they can have 6 top 6 guys and play Casey on the third line. And it's not Logan O'Connor in your top 6. It's not Kiviranta in your top 6. If the Avs were healthy, you can have McKinnon, Druin, Lehkonen, Nichushkin, pick whoever you want to play as 2C at that point, Rantanen, sure, whatever. And then Colton as well. You can have a real top 6 with Casey Middlestat out of it instead of Casey Middlestat's struggling, so we got to put him on the fourth line, and I guess we'll play Parsonen in the top 6. Like, it feels so much harder for the Avs to make those adjustments because of the guys that they're missing.
And the one that really hurt, and we all know that, because he's been in and out. It's Val, you know what I mean? Like he's the one. I forget about Gabe. We're going on 3 years, right? You know, so I love him. I'm not discarding him. I'm saying, I think in Bednar's eyes or in his mind, he's not even there. Hasn't been there. The one that's been in, out, you know, with all the reasons and everything, it's been Val. You know what I mean? And
him and Drew and both.
And
I
Drew,
would say,
you know,
yeah.
Drew, yeah, you know, and they're. But even Val, I'm talking about for a couple years now. You know what I mean? Like, you know, going back to that's why I said for all the reasons. Not going back on it, just saying. So this feels that there's just always like a tug, like a pulling, you know what I mean? And it's like, oh, and it gets annoying, you know what I mean? And it affects your power play. It affects anything, right? I mean, we'll talk about that later, I'm sure. But, you know, it is what it is. But they've never made an excuse. They've never. It's one thing to say it's next man up mentality, and it's another thing to really believe it. You know what I mean? I do believe that for a while they believed it. Until you don't believe it no more because you're frustrated. You're just like, hey, I'm done with this. This is just stinks. You know what I mean? You drive home and with your wife and you just start screaming. You know what I mean? Like, are you kidding me? Like, come on, man. Like, come on. It's just, you know, it's been that kind of season.
Like, what's the total now with Poland? The Avs are at 41 players dressed for the season. That's
40 of that have actually played.
Yeah, and then Mandalese for who backed up a game. That's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous number at 46 games into the season.
Yeah, 40 players in 46 games is absurd. That's absurd. And it's what, 6 goaltenders?
Yeah, 6.
Yeah, 6.
Gross. Get out of here. It's been exhausting. That's why it feels they're 46 games in and it feels like they're 65 games in.
Yep.
Like it's for us covering it. It's been taxing because of this. Yeah. I can't imagine what living in, like being at the rink every day, has been like.
Yeah, it must be ridiculous.
And it's 40. You said 41, and that doesn't even count. Remember after game 20, doesn't even count when they reached out to me and I didn't pick up the phone.
Could be 42 if he signed the deal.
Was that because your phone was broken again?
No. My phone's more than fine.
The only thing about his phone that works is the phone calls, buddy.
I didn't want to pick up. I didn't want to put myself in that situation.
When you think, like, I know numbers can feel arbitrary at times. You ice 20 skaters a night, if you include goalies. And the Avs have suited up 40 different people that have actually played. That's an entire new hockey team worth of players. You can make an entire hockey team out of the guys that aren't currently on the Avs roster.
Hey, listen, no sarcasm right here, what I'm going to say. I'm being honest here. But it makes, like, K-Mac, Kevin McDonald's job a little bit easier next summer when you're trying to attract, like, you know what I mean, like UFAs for American League. You say, hey, listen, we promote our guys. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you don't have to say, like, everyone was injured. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, we promote you. You want to play in the National Hockey League, you'll have a chance. Look, we played 40-some guys. I'm not being sarcastic, man. I'm being honest. It goes a long way. So it helps you out a little bit on the other side. You know what I mean? Because you don't have to tell the agent that's because of injuries. You can just say, no, we like to see what they're about in the NHL.
It's just absurd. That's why I wanted to bring it up. And for the record, same thing I said in our post-game show the other night. It has nothing to do with the loss last night.
No.
You're up 3-0. You should find a way to win the game, whether you're icing an AHL team or what. Yeah. And the Avs failed to do that. But it was a topic that I wanted to talk about because the Avs just can't seem to shake that injury bug this year. Every time it feels like they get a guy or two back and then they lose 2 more.
Yeah, but again, look at last week when they played Mini and everyone was, everybody's out in Mini. Yeah, no, welcome to Avs land, right? And then tomorrow, Mini's coming in. And they got some injuries, you know what I mean? But it's like, okay, but you're certainly not going to feel bad for the Minnesota Wild if you're the Avalanche because it's been atrocious.
I know this is a topic we talk about every time the Avs get injured, and it annoys me that we kind of have to talk about it, but there's nothing that the Avs can do about this.
I hate this conversation.
Me too, but you got to have it because that's what people are talking about.
No.
It's so annoying, dude. Like, if it was... I've always said, look, if they had an issue with bringing a bunch of guys back and then they re-injure themselves, which did happen 2 years ago, but that was, like, it hasn't been a thing this season of, like, like, we know with Drouin's injury, he's just going to have to deal with it. There are going to be good days and bad days. That's not like a strength and conditioning.
That's just how rib injuries are.
I mean, if you go to training camp,
frustrating.
If you go to training camp and all of a sudden you have 27 groin injuries, and you know what I mean, yeah,
sure, but that's not what the Avs are dealing with.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, that was Bednar's first year.
Yep.
That was what we lived with his first training camp, where he pushed him so hard in the conditioning, and a bunch of guys came up with soft tissue injuries, and it was like, okay, training camps have never been like that since, and they get less stressful every year. They gear it down just a little bit, knowing that the preseason now is 3 weeks long. You know, it's so long that the conversation about the strength and conditioning coach is just like, why is it happening to the Avs? I really wish I had an answer. Why doesn't it ever really happen to the Dallas Stars? I also don't know. Like, I again wish I had an answer.
No state tax.
Yeah.
I want to get your guys' thoughts on an interesting topic that I've heard getting thrown around, because I don't think it's exclusively this, but I do think it could matter, even if it's only a little bit. And this is a weird conversation to talk about from our side, but look, when you talk about the altitude and the thinner air up here, I'm not a doctor.
Maybe
could that affect? I don't think it really affects injuries, but maybe it affects recovery time a little bit. Maybe it makes these high-level athletes a little bit longer paths to getting back to health and being able to jump back into the lineup. I don't know. Am I grasping at straws here, or could this be a thing?
Am I a scientist? No. Actually, we have friends from Niagara Falls here, and gave us nice bracelets, by the way. Thank you. And we were just talking about that. They were at Red Rocks yesterday, and it is a fact. They're huffing and puffing. I'm not making fun of them. It's just reality, right? It's a reality. So does that affect, your recovery, your injury-prone thing? I don't know. I'm sure that it's got to be a scientist out there that believes in it, and or the other one that doesn't. But I don't know. You know what I mean? But it's certainly different air, and it's definitely thin air, and it's definitely a different way of training and adapting, or if you're in town for a day, or if you're in town for life. You know what I mean? There is some consequences, so to speak, or if you don't drink water, obviously your body is,
turn into a raisin.
So, and the visiting teams knew that, but I think the Avs do a good job, like explaining that to their athletes, and it's never been an issue for us internally. It's been an issue for visiting teams, like I said, but is it long term an issue? I don't know. That'd be a good, that may be a good thing to ask and get someone to come in and
It was just the first one of those topics that I've heard where I was like, maybe that's actually a thing.
Yeah, I don't think it's anything they're doing. Maddie's been here forever. Scotty, all those guys, in the training room, they're pros. They're awesome. You don't last this long in a league, if you don't know what you're doing, and obviously their medical staff. So, but is it an outside source? I don't know.
Me either.
All I know is your ball travels further with your wedge. I know that. In Colorado.
This is skewing dangerously close to being a Joe Rogan podcast where we all just say whatever we want and then just pretend it's true.
Aliens, man.
Yeah.
You ever tried DMT, AJ?
No comment.
Well, whether you're living up in the high air of Colorado or down in the low air of anywhere else, make sure that you are living well. Go get yourself with Live Well. 25 different locations here in Colorado, and all they want to do is make sure everybody has access to cannabis even, and live well. Go to livewell.com. You can order online for pickup in store, or of course you can go into any location, ask their professional staff. They'll help you out. Even if you're new to cannabis, they'll walk you through all the steps of what product might be right for you. And the coolest part is when you mention code DNVR25 in store, you can get 25% off one full price item. So get with Live Well today. Again, 25 different locations in Colorado, and you can order online for pickup at livewell.com. And once you're living well, make sure you also are seeing well. This Shady Rays has prescription sunglasses. You can get prescription ones to see better.
Maybe
you can
hide those bloodshot eyes.
Yeah, exactly. The Live Well eyes can get hidden behind the Shady Rays sunglasses. Of course, they also have polarized sunglasses, something for everyone, whether it be style, coloration, or whatever you're looking for in your sunglasses. You can get to shadyrays.com and get 35% off any pair of polarized sunglasses with code DNVR. Rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. You can also get a great deal just to try them because of Shady Rays' return policy. I guess you call it a return policy. First 30 days, if you don't like them, you lose them or you break them, Shady Rays will replace them completely for free. So you might as well give it a shot. Head over to shadyrays.com today and get that deal with code DNVR. Second period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast here. I wanted to bring up our schedule for the rest of this homestand because the reality is the next 6 days is critically important for the Avs when it comes to the standings of the Central Division. You have Dallas, Minnesota, and Winnipeg all in a row here. This win-loss schedule they've been on has kind of set them back a little bit when it comes to climbing up the Central Division ladder. Certainly Winnipeg, it feels like, may have gotten away from them a little bit again, but you're still directly in a battle with Dallas and Minnesota. And I know it's only January. I get that there's multiple months of the season left at this point, but stretches like this, the way the Avs play these next 3 games, could matter quite a bit in how they play out the rest of their season. And I'm not saying make the playoffs or anything like that, but if you gain a lot of points, you're all of a sudden in the race and you want to make sure you're winning every night. If you crash out a little bit over these next handful of games, you might get into March and say, well, we're pretty clearly in a wild card spot and there's no sense in trying to chase them down. How do you approach this if you're the Colorado Avalanche? How important should these games be to them? Are they just another 3 games, or are these critical ones?
Yeah, they're hugely important because they're all 4-point games, and if you sweep these, you take 2 points out of the pockets of the teams that you're chasing. The Avs have more games played than both Minnesota and Dallas. They're tied with Winnipeg. Let's be real, they're not catching Winnipeg. They're 10 points back with 35 games, 37 games to play, something like that, 36 games to play.
Yep.
They're not catching them. Like, it would take an insane run and a big time collapse from the Jets for that to happen. But they are 55 points right now. They're Dallas has 57, Minnesota has 58. I think Dallas is too good. I think Dallas is probably your favorite for the 2 seed in the Central. I think this is really about Minnesota and Colorado jockeying for position at the 3 or the wild card, and it might even be a fair question. Do the Avs even want to be in this? Like, is it better to be in the wild card? You get the best team in the Pacific, or you get Winnipeg in round 1, which obviously after last year you feel confident about.
Sure.
As we know, regular season record doesn't mean a damn thing when you get into the playoffs.
True.
So, is that it's an important weekend because you still need points. They haven't secured a playoff berth.
Nobody has.
The chances exactly the chances that they fall out of the wild card race though, and actually miss the postseason are so low. They're low.
It would take a lot of doing.
Yeah. Which team do you believe in more? But two of Calgary, Vancouver, St. Louis, Utah would have to outplay the Avs over the next 36 games.
I might have said Vancouver earlier in the year, but certainly not right now.
Vancouver has 19 wins in 44 games this season. 19 wins. Like they are. It's just not. It's not a serious consideration at the moment.
The vibes are just not right there.
This is a topic I actually want to bring up. We're tangenting here a little bit, but do we have the standings graphic, Tiff? I don't know if it'll show it or not because I didn't ask for this specifically. But the only reason there's even a conversation about the wild card standings is the loser point. The only reason.
Yeah. Absolutely. Calgary has 7, Vancouver has 10, St. Louis has 4, Utah has 7. The Avs have 1.
Which, in part, that's a good job by the Avs too. When they get to overtime, they usually win the game. But we're seriously talking about Utah being at 35 points on the year, if not for the loser point. It's incredible.
The Avs have a huge advantage in both regulation wins and regulation and overtime wins. Like it would take two of those teams, Calgary, Vancouver, St. Louis, Utah. It would take two of those teams outplaying the Avs down the stretch, and not to just tie them, but pass them in the standings over the next 36 for the Avs, 36 games. I'm not buying that's happening.
Me either.
As much as we're talking about, like the Avs, they win one, they lose one. Their last 10, they're down to 6-3-1 in their last 10. They have gained points on Calgary, Vancouver, St. Louis, and Utah. They've gained at least 1 point of distance on all of those teams. St. Louis is the best performing one at 6-4.
Yep.
Like, it's just not. We're not having a serious conversation about them missing the postseason yet. They're not even close to it right now.
It really is true. And I know people look at it and they see the games in hand and stuff of some teams like Calgary. But even if you give Calgary 100% wins with their game in hand, they're still behind the Avs.
Yeah. And that's the second wildcard team. That would put the Avs as the second wildcard team.
Right. And then another team has to do it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. 2 of those 4 teams have to outplay the Avs over the next 36 games. I don't think that's going to happen without Val Nichushkin coming back, without any of these things, right, that we think are going to happen. It's just, it's not a serious conversation yet.
So which leads me to say a couple parts here. First part, the making the playoff part. If you've been listening to the pod last couple of days, I'll do the Speedo race. You know what I mean? It's not going to happen. So, all right, that's one. So it's not even, oh, man, it's in my thoughts, you know. I understand you have to get in, and they know that, and they're professionals. That's one. 2, I've never been part of a team or, you know, you're trying to where do we want to be? Do we want to be towards the top? Do we want to be at the bottom? Like, you know what? They want to make sure they're going in there playing right. Right now, they know they're not playing right. You know, they know that there's whatever it was, like Bendar said yesterday, 7-2-1 in the last 10 before last night, whatever it was. There's a reason for that. They got the best core in the league. So there's no ifs and buts. It's just the way it is. So right there, I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about them, you know, pushing to get in, not to get in, pushing to get to the top, because if they play the right way and if they, you know, you want to be going in an upswing in the playoffs. You don't want to be searching for your game, you know, which I don't think they will be. I think they'll be more towards the top than at the bottom. And I think it's not even about wanting. And whenever you try to manipulate, like, I'm not saying that's what you were saying earlier, but you know, whenever you're trying to, it usually backfires on you. You know what I mean? Like, oh, let's go
Yeah.
play a top of the Pacific instead of, the Dallas Stars or whatever it is, right? It usually backfires on you. And again, that for the reason teams don't do that for those reasons. I just believe that they want to get in there, playing the right way on an upswing. And I think that's why you've seen a little bit of frustration from Bednar the last couple. He's not even talking injuries. He's talking about, got to be rolling. There's so many parts, right? Oh, if one thing's going, goaltending's going out, but the power play's not going. You know what I mean? So you want to make sure you get all the pieces rolling. And when you hit playoffs on an upswing like that, that's when you can make some damage. You know what I mean? And because playoffs can be a long, grueling couple months, or it can be a short 10 days, as we know for a lot of teams, right?
Yep.
And that's the reality of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And you make franchise-altering moves at the deadline because you think you can go, you know what I mean? And at the end of the day, 31 teams are disappointed and one team's happy. So I think that's what I'm trying to say is the Speedo race is on.
I think this is becoming more and more of a conversation in modern sports in general. AJ talked about the Avs top guys maybe being a little bit burned out because of all of the load they've had to carry for the Avs because of the injuries this year. But you look at it, and without getting into the conversation of sports seasons are too long, NBA, constant load management in that league. You're watching the best players sit out regularly to take care of themselves. In the NHL, look no further than the Avs Cup run. The year before, they go all out, they win the President's Trophy, and they run out of gas against Vegas in that series. The year they win the Cup, let's be honest, they cruised it into the playoffs a little bit.
Yeah.
Those last 10
4,
games
5,
of the
and
season.
1.
Yeah, right.
4,
Because
5,
I did
and
the
1
job
going into the
before.
postseason.
Because you did the job
And everybody
before,
was
right?
losing it. Like, going into that playoffs, it was like, well, you can't just flip a switch. Well, the Predators were 3-1 against the Avs in the regular season. Oh, my gosh.
God, I miss that, boys.
Yeah, and then they went 16-4 in the playoffs. So I do think there is a factor to this of it's not happening in January, but certainly you get back from the Four Nations, you get into the trade deadline, and teams have to make decisions about where they are in the standings and how they want to play out the rest of their year. Now, some teams don't have a choice. You're battling for your playoff life. Some teams are going to make the choice that they want to try and trace down the number one seed. And some teams are going to be happy to sit in whatever position they might be in. But I do think it'll be an interesting year for the Avalanche on where they end up and how it plays out as far as not necessarily, we want to play this team or we want to try and get this seed,
No,
but
I agree.
how they manage their schedule.
But I'll tell you one thing, though, and you said a word there, 2 words, actually. 4 nations. 2 words, 4 nations. As a player...
One number, 2 words.
1 number, 2 words. As a player, I think it's awesome. It's great. Whatever it is, it's exciting. It's a preview somehow of the Olympics and best on best. As management, as an owner, you just said it. Rest and are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Like, come on. Wouldn't you rather have Kel McCarr have 2 weeks off? And
yes,
absolutely. Washington Capitals is 0 guys at the Four Nations right now. And they're at the top of the league in the East or whatever they are. I'm just saying, like,
They employ a lot of guys from the country that isn't at the Four Nations, so.
But that's what I mean. Like, what'd you say? They what?
I'm saying if there was another country and it was the Five Nations,
I know, but
they'd
they're not
have
there.
a lot of guys.
They're not
going.
there. Like I'm saying, oh my God, I hate that. You got those guys now for a couple of weeks going over that. It's good for them as players. I know that. That's why I hate those tournaments in season like that. Whether it's Olympics or whatever, I just don't like it for those reasons. I know for the players it's awesome. I'm not saying that. I'm just being selfish.
Is it awesome? I mean,
Some guys love it. I can tell you that.
The Olympics,
Absolutely.
I totally get 100%. But
Well,
I
a
don't
lot
know.
of a lot of the guys, because they're thinking of the Olympics in 2 years now, so they're like, I got to put in a good show here for 2 years. I'm telling you, that's how they think.
Sure.
Which is fair.
I don't know. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit more. But AJ, I know you got to get out of here, so we're gonna let you ride off into the sunset here as we pay some bills. Appreciate you hopping on and talking a little Avs with us. All right. On that note, if you're trying to get yourself out to the games, whether that be here or in the Avs are on the road, or maybe you're looking for Nuggets games or otherwise, make sure you get with Game Time. You can jump on with Game Time today. Use the DNVR code to get $20 off your first purchase. And make sure you're using the Game Time Picks feature to find the best tickets for the best prices, no matter what you're searching for. It doesn't even have to be sports. You can get into concerts, theaters, and otherwise with Game Time's options. Jump on with them. They guarantee you the best price and will reimburse your account 110% of the ticket price if you find tickets cheaper somewhere else. So get with Game Time today. Join 15 million people that used Game Time to get their tickets. There's a link down in the description, and make sure you use that DNVR code to get $20 off. And once you're at the game, make sure you're chilling with an ice-cold Coors Light. Go get yourself the beer literally made to chill. The mountains turn blue on the bottle or the can. I was this many years old when I found out Eric didn't know that the mountains actually change color.
I had no idea.
I tell you what, those mountains are going to be changing color on your doorstep tonight and this weekend here in Colorado. It's going to get cold. But you don't have to go get your Coors Light. You can get it delivered right to your front door thanks to CoorsLight.com/DNVR and Instacart. So jump in with them. Just chill on your couch and enjoy yourself some ice cold Coors Light. Maybe you can set up one of those, like, people do the snow beer fridges. Like, if there's enough snow, you just stick them out your back door and I don't know.
Oh, I don't see why you wouldn't.
There you go. That's how you chill around here. Go get your Coors Light. Again, CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Please drink responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Third period of the DNVR Avalanche podcast, presented by Bet365. You talked about this a little bit maybe a week or two ago when they were kind of coming off the Christmas break. I want to dive a little bit more into this because you're talking about January being the part of the season where the malaise sets in a little bit, right? It's hard to get up as a player every single night for games in this portion of the season. What helps shake that off, I guess? Obviously, these players going to the Four Nations, it's straight through.
Yeah.
But does a break like that help the guys who get to stay at home a little bit?
100%. 100% it does, and that's why I always say game 40 to game 60 are the dog days of the season. They are. That's a fact. And I'm not saying you're going to play like crap in those games. I'm just saying mentally it's tough. You're in the grind of it. If there's a tournament like this one, obviously it benefits the guys that are not going because you get a nice little rest. But what does that mean? The schedule's condensed, you know what I mean, on both sides of it. And that's for every team. We were talking about it like, Avs been crazy, that schedule. But, I mean, then we saw Montreal come in and we were laughing at their road trip. And it was like, and then we looked again yesterday. And they're back in Dallas yesterday and then Utah the day before.
And
it's like,
8-1 in their last 10.
That's my point. And if you would have looked at that in the summer, you would have said, hey, man, corner right there. They're going to die right there. Montreal Canadiens will be dead by that 10-game stretch.
Yeah.
You know what? They made themselves alive. So, you know, it is what it is. But those games are tough because the start is fresh and it is what it is. Then you get to the middle, you're like, oh my God, I can't believe it's already the middle. And then 40 to 60 slows down a little bit. And then 60, it's always, oh my God, you're in the teens now. Oh, 19 games, 18 games, you know? So it's kind of nice that way. It's short term, not goals, but like planning. But I do believe that break coming up will benefit a lot of guys that are not going. The guys that are going, then sometimes it can be good for a guy because he shows well and he gains confidence and, you know, whatever. And then he comes back and he's excited and he wants to play well for his team. And I'm not saying guys want to play well for their country and not well for their teams. I'm saying it's a totally different experience. But we shall see. You have to keep it fresh as a team, as coaches. You know, they've had meetings and they talk about, you know, I mean, again, we don't play for the Avs, we're not in the locker room, but you're assuming, you know, you have usually a little meeting for a 10-game segment. This is what's going to happen. This is where we're at. This is what we have. Keep it fresh. We're not going to practice a lot this month or whatever it is. Like, you know what I mean? They know. They lay it all out for the guys, which is nice. And you kind of know where you're at. And then they preach, you know, take care of yourself off the ice. Take care of yourself, you know. Make sure you get away from the rink. You know what I mean? Make sure you do different things with your wife, girlfriend, well, whatever, friends from town, kids. So, but I think it's important to really freshen things up 40 to 60 because it can get a little bit grueling at times.
Yeah. I mean, the human body is only capable of doing so much. Not even talking about injury front, but an 82-game season is a long stretch of a lot of hockey.
And again, just to hence your point there, compared to back then and compared to 10 years ago, like everybody now has upped it up a little bit in their facilities in the sense of the recovery things. Everybody's got a chef now. I mean, I do believe 32 out of 32 now have their own chef. Everybody, more about the sleeping patterns and the sleeping tools that you can, those wristbands and monitor your sleep. And gone are the days that who cares? This is when we're leaving. No, now they actually science and look at it and say, no, we are sleeping over in Dallas and they are coming back the next day. It makes more sense to do this and this and that. And they teach you a lot more. They monitor the guys on the ice every day with their heart rate, whatever things, and their load, and their, like what's the goal today? You know what I mean? So it's a lot more behind it than off the cuff where you pay, whatever. Like, hey, let's do this. You know what I mean? It's a lot more looked into. There's a lot more staff members than back then, and that's why the product's better. Quite frankly, it is better. I'm not gonna, tell you that back then was better. Today's NHL is better than it was back then. There's a reason for that, and we're mentioning a lot of them right here.
And look, I think the physical load is always obvious. We always talk about how days off. Well, that's a couple days for some abs to get a little bit healthier, or if you're banged up or whatever, you can get from 80% to 90% or whatever the numbers are. But I do think it flies under the radar a little bit that the players need a mental break at times too, right? When you're on that grind for months on end, when you're the Avs that have played 25 games in the last 50 days or whatever it is, you need a couple days to just kind of mentally reset as much as the physical aspect of it.
That is huge. I got traded 1 year to Rangers, like January. Didn't have 1 day off till the end of the season.
That's tough.
It's like, what? I'm being honest, not 1 day off.
Yeah.
And it's like, where does that come from? And I'm not blaming. That's what we knew back then. I'm not pointing fingers back then. Nowadays, it's the mandatory a day off, PA regulated 1 day off.
Look no further than the Avs practice schedule, right?
I get it.
Optional, no practice,
great.
Optional, no morning skate,
Love
optional.
Guys don't like that. They'll lie to you. It's great practicing. Nobody likes to practice. Come on, you talk about practice? Nobody likes it. Everybody likes to mess around if it's an optional. Sure, you know what I mean. Like nobody likes to practice. But of course, you have to put in the work sometimes and everything. But it's so different. It is so different, and I think it's very important. I think teams that figure it out a few years back, knowing that pushing is just as important as
relaxing
back,
or whatever you want to call it.
Whatever you want to call it, chillaxing.
Recovery.
Recovery is a big word. It's a big word, and I think the ones that get it, as long as you don't take advantage of it as a player.
Of course. You have to do it the right way.
You have to do the right thing, and that's why coaches are smart. They'll be like, hey, today's a work day. Let's get the work in. But, So, it's changed a lot, and it's so important. I think that the Avs are right on top of it right now.
I appreciate it. I hope they do manage it. I want to ask you this way, because obviously McKinnon, McCarr, Rantanen, Taves, they don't get the break. Uh-huh. So they don't get that time off. So who is it most important for Colorado to make hay while the sun is out? I don't know this phrase. Who on the Avs needs to take advantage of the break and come out of it the right way in a couple of weeks?
Well, think about it. Maybe a guy like Casey. Let's just use him for example, because I'm not here to bag on him. But sometimes it's like you just said it, a little mental reset or get away, for a little bit. Get away from your surroundings. I'm not sure what the plans are going to be. I'm sure they'll have some practices they'll have to be at. And I don't know, let's say it's 7 days off and then you'll have to be
whatever
back and, whatever. Yeah. Obviously, you're not practicing with a full team because you're missing the guys that are at Four Nations.
Of course.
So it messes up everything. And, but at least those guys, I think it's important to just get away from your surroundings, get away from the practice rink or you just, I don't know. Sometimes it is that you take a little trip or it's beautiful. Colorado's awesome. Get in the car, drive to, where'd you guys go today? Yesterday? Yeah, you go to the mountains, go to all those places, and get away from what you see every day. You know what I mean? Just change your
Something
mind.
different.
You know what I mean? Something different. Go tubing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care. Go snow tubing. You know what I mean? Like, don't go skiing.
Is that allowed on the contract?
You know what I mean? But you go fly fishing and well, no, sorry, that's stupid. But go ice fishing in Minnesota if you want, if you're from there. I don't know. Go say hi to old friends. I think it's important to hit the reset button, come back, refresh, and have short-term goals afterwards. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think and I'm not saying, Casey until then should just be. I'm using Casey. I'm not here to do is whatever you want to call it.
He's just the easy name.
He's just an easy name right now because he's in it and he's struggling a little bit. And there'll be times in your career you are in it and you are struggling. Very normal. Doesn't mean that you should trade him. Doesn't mean that you should get rid of him. Doesn't mean that he stinks. He's going to get out of it. But sometimes it's something like that makes you get out of it. Then,
sure.
Hey, what was your turning point? You're in the locker room with the champagne and after you won. And say, hey, well, you know what? I was with my wife and my girlfriend and
spent 4 days thinking about anything else.
Else. It was great for me to just get away. And again, I'm making the nice story here, but I think it's important. I think it will benefit some teams. And on the flip side, sometimes it might not benefit teams where you're going and you hit that stride, and then all of a sudden the break comes, you come back, you can't win a game, and then you're like, why'd that break come? You know what I mean? So it's just kind of, it can hit you both ways, and but I think it'll be interesting to see as individuals, as teams, what teams can do to make sure that guys are erasing or jumping back in. So what needs to be done.
Let me ask you about a guy like Parsonen then.
Yeah.
Because Parson is the guy the Avs trade for in the middle of the season. He's been fine. I think he's played fine, but does a break like that help him a little bit to get more up to speed with Avalanche hockey, or is the occasional practices that the Avs have in season enough?
No, I think it's I think it will have been like, you get traded, it's a whirlwind, it's crazy, and you pack your stuff, you go, and look no further than Wedgwood. You know what I mean? Had wife and little newborn, and
Yep.
But Parsonen, I don't know his situation, don't know if he's single or whatever it is, but I think it's just been, you get traded here, and now you're at the hotel at first, and then you go find a place, and you're not too sure, and then it's nuts, and you got to get your stuff brought back or shipped out or whatever it is, which is all part of CBA and everything I'm saying. But all of a sudden, your stuff gets here. Your furniture, your clothes, or whatever it is, your vehicle. But I think in a break like that, it probably helps you to just get like situated a little bit. You know what I mean? And go, okay, they like me here. I like it here. I'm under contract, right? Is contract over? No, he's got one.
Yeah, he's an RFA though. So.
But he's RFA. But I'm saying, perfect. I'm here, and now I got into my place, so I rented a place, so I'm out of the hotel. My girlfriend's here, or my wife. I don't know a situation. I'm pretty sure. I mean, it looks like he's 12. I'm pretty sure he doesn't have kids, but
you never know.
But and then all of a sudden, you spend a little bit of time. You're not familiar with Colorado, and maybe there's a kid you run to say, hey, we're going up to Vail, the mountains, and come with us, and and then all of a sudden, you explore and you feel a little better, and you come back and you practice here for 5, 6, 7 days before the guys get back. It's a 2-week break, right?
It's like 15 days or something.
Yeah, I remember like the 98 Nagano Olympics, which should have been on Team Canada, but whatever, it's a different story. But we had 21 days off, and it was just like, we were all like, excuse me?
Based on the roster they brought to World Juniors, maybe you should be on it.
Maybe. It makes me feel better. But it was like 21 days, and I remember those days back then. It was like you couldn't play on the 25th. That was it, December.
Sure.
But that means that you probably practiced or you flew out or whatever. Right. I mean, so there was no days off, Yeah. So it was like 21 days, and we'd laugh at each other like, what are we going to do for 21 days? You know what I mean? Like, it was kind of absurd, you know? Now they're a little bit better. They're a little bit more in tune to it, and I think a guy like that might benefit from that. And then you come back and you see like a very energized player, Again, that was a great pick in Parson. That's a great example.
I know you said it's important to get away, and I think that's true, but also, how many of these guys are just skating every day on their own anyway during these breaks?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the league mandate's going to be, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, and again, it is a different league. Back then, we'd take those 3 months off in the summer. We didn't skate. Those guys are like 2 weeks, they're back on the ice. And, it's a different type of training, skills or whatever. So, some guys are going to take some time off. But, yeah, they all have, some of them have private coaches and, whatever it is. I'm sure they'll be, like, organizing a few skates here and there, skill skates, and can't have anyone. And I'm not saying the Avs would. Again, you don't want to be fined. You don't want to be that team that's dumb.
That's crazy that this random lake in Minnesota just happens to have this guy at it today.
As long as he doesn't work for you.
Right,
for
exactly.
your team. Give Toby a nice break. You don't put Toby in trouble by saying, hey, can you skate us, like in at the lake? You know what I mean? So don't do that. And again, I don't even know the rules. I'm speculating here. But some guys will plan it, where, hey, 4 or 5 days off, a few days of that, and then get back to practice here in town whenever the facilities are allowed to be open. Don't be that team that's dumb and do it 2 days before, quietly, secretly. Doesn't work. Look at, who is it? The Dallas this year, they got caught, whatever. They had a practice, and then they flew out.
I don't know.
They played dumb. They didn't know, and whatever it was. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Just follow the rules, but have a plan, and you have so many things at your fingertips that you can just ask questions and how do you do it, because it's not something normal.
Yep.
Not to have a big break like that.
Okay, we're going to take a 1 second pause here, and then we'll get into our last segment of the show. All right. Look, I know it's not a secret that everyone's goal is to win the big thing at the end of the season, but do you think the Avs should be, I'm not going to say think about it, but should the Avs' best players be focused in on trying to win individual accolades a little bit?
I think you should be trying to be the best you can be every night. You know what I mean? Okay. And I think that's how they take it. I don't think you really put too much into it, saying, I might just slow it down a little bit. I think you want to be the best you can be and carry that into the playoffs. And it's been done before. It can be done again. There's seasons that are magical, that everything goes right. And I don't know, Avalanche seasons go back to even before 2022. Go to 01. Like, Sakic is one of the best players in the league, one of the best players, Forsberg, same thing. Great year. And then the playoffs go. And then for the 2 months they're in there, they're awesome. You know what I mean? So continuity. They're not tired. They're not whatever it is. And of course it's a different season. I get it. And then they were so good, you were able to rest on the stretch a little bit, like the Avs of 2022.
I mean, that's kind of my point, right? And I know this isn't always the case, but certainly with this version of the Avs Cup run, McKinnon didn't have to be the MVP of the league. That team was good enough that he didn't have to be. Yeah. And we saw it a couple years later where he's the MVP, but the team comes up a little bit short for various reasons. Yep. And I agree with your original statement. Obviously, you want every player to be their best as often as they can be, but maybe it should be stop there and don't go that extra step of like, oh, well, if I get that empty net third point tonight, I should win the MVP or whatever. It feels like that type of thinking can get a little bit dubious at times.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And sometimes they add up, taxing the minutes. It's kind of like the salary cap, right? Sending guys every day, it just helps a little bit with LTIR and all that stuff. So I think you're right. Those shifts here, shifts there, they do add up. Maybe that brings us to the power play, or, you know what I mean? Like where maybe that's where it's not working right now. So maybe you just break it up, and all of a sudden guys will lose a minute or two of ice time. Well, okay, then 10 games, that's 20 minutes. That's a game.
It adds up.
It adds up. So, and again, if they were rolling at 50%, I'd be telling you, like, what is wrong with you? Do not touch.
Of course.
They're not rolling close to that.
An interesting question from Lane here in the chat. Eric, how much do you think an LOC, him and players like him, could improve with a lot of skill work, like puck handling drills, explosive speed work to tie it all together? I know he's probably doing a lot of that, but I'm still curious.
Yeah. Well, here's what I think. I think some guys will start at a certain point in their career and then finish somewhere else, like really a much higher, towards a ceiling that a lot of people didn't think he could reach, but internally a lot of people could, and that's why they believed in that player. That happens usually with the higher end skilled players, and I think for a guy like LOC, if he was here and talked to you, like, you would understand that first and foremost, why he's successful in this league, because he knows what he is. And once you figure that out, it will let you attain a certain level of like Logan is doing. You know what I mean? He's not just a fourth liner anymore like he got in where he played 8-9 minutes and killed some penalties. He can be a third liner, you know what I mean, where he's very effective. He becomes a leader, and he's the key guy on your penalty killing. You know, I think Logan would be the first one to tell you he can do any skills work for 5 hours a day extra the next 10 years. Like, he won't become that guy. You know what I mean? Because I think being identity crisis is a term I use all the time. The number one cause of death in the NHL is identity crisis. It is. It's a fact.
Yep.
It's a fact. If you don't know what you are, and if you think you are something you're not, you will not make a career. And I don't want to use names, but you can think of one. He just got called up the other day and he's gone again. But that's an identity crisis, and it will kill your career. And I think Logan, and I remember talking to him back then, and that's why I respect him so much. He's like, oh no, I know what I am, and I know what I can be, and it's not that big of a gap, but I'm always going to go back to I know what I am. Because once you forget that and you try to be something you're not, you don't last in this league very much. And it's not, and a lot of times you'll point fingers at that time, and you're like, it's not me, it's them. They didn't give me my chance. And so to answer Lane's question is, they do a lot of skills work. It's amazing what's in front of them nowadays, and everybody's so skilled nowadays in this league. It's crazy. But yeah, there's only so much you can attain, but I think you can't get out of your identity because you'll be looking for a job.
I mean, I think the situation this is made most clear in is skating. When you look at how the NHL handles skating, look, any player can improve their form. They can do all the things right. They can work it, and to a certain extent, they can improve their skating. But at a certain point, it's just your natural ability of how fast you can be, and there's no real way to change that ceiling. Like, you can put on muscle, or you can do this, but at a certain point, certain people's bodies are just more capable of skating faster than others, and there's nothing you can do about that. So you have to work with what you have.
And the only thing that sometimes it will look even worse, meaning like, oh wow, he got so much better at skating, but it's more like it's not even about skating. It's about where he's going on the ice, because he learned with experience of where to go, what makes you successful in a shift or not, and the areas of where to get to where you don't have to.
You always say it about Tyler Toffoli, right? Doesn't skate fast, but he plays fast.
Plays fast, can't skate.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you. He can't skate. So you can put him on the red line. Here's going to finish last. You know, that's it. But you give him a puck and you tell him to make a decision and make a play. That's why he's still playing.
Yep.
So I think you can gain that a little bit as a player. So you're not getting to areas and working so hard. You're not working smart. You know what I mean? So, but it looks like you're skating really fast. You got I think it's just you have to figure out how to skate, where to skate. But skills is skills too, and it is what it is.
Like you said, you have to know who you are and play to your strengths. If you're slow and you try to skate fast, it's not going to work. You have to learn how to play fast while skating slow. If you're fast, you don't have to necessarily think as much. You just go crash test, dummy crash into stuff, and
what's my rule? What's my line? I say it all the time.
Crushers and ushers.
A crusher tries to become a rusher, he often becomes an usher.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Press box. Go watch the game from up top. And it's just the way it is. That's not a stupid line. It's a reality of life in the NHL. But you also got to know how to push yourself too, where to get to. And that's where you need, Bednar talks about it all the time. He talks about a trust factor. You know what I mean? Like, there's a trust factor with Kivy this year up till he got hurt, a little bit before, but Ivan, right? There's a trust there where some guys that have been called up, there's no trust factor yet. They haven't done it enough where he trusts them. You know what I mean? And that's why you've seen the revolving door. And I'm not blaming it at all. Man, that's your coach. You don't win, you're fired. So you know what I mean? That's why I tell kids all the time. Oh, coach doesn't play. Yep. So the coach is going to make sure he's going to weaken his lineup to make sure that, you're very good. He doesn't want to put you there because he's going to win. He wants to make sure he loses so he can get fired, and then his kids have to pack up their stuff and leave town, and and cry. You know what I mean? Like, come on, man, it doesn't work that way. They're gonna put the best players at their disposition that they can. You know what I mean? Nobody's trying to. Oh, he's trying to push me down.
Sometimes we might disagree on what we think the best player for that position is.
100%.
But I hear you for sure.
And then that's when I tell those guys at that time, retire, become a coach. You'll say it's not. There's a lot more players than coaches.
That's definitely true.
So you can quit, hang up the skates, and go in the coaching ranks. You'll see. It's not easy.
I don't want to know how hard it is. That's why I sit on a couch and talk about hockey instead of actually
I know.
play or coach it. So
it's crazy.
I do think there are some other interesting conversations. We can't really fully get into it on this show, but we are once again starting to see a positional battle perhaps on the Avs bottom pairing, whether that's DeHaan, Middleton, Malinsky. Where does Shillington fit into that picture once he's back to capable of playing, since he is skating again? I don't know that it's necessarily a bad thing, but I certainly thought there would be a more set lineup for the Colorado Avalanche this far into the season.
I agree with you. And I think injuries have led it to this, like you said, where it seemed that there was a little bit of a path on D there for many games. It kind of stayed the same a little bit because the circumstances led it that's what it was, and they were having some sort of success, and then all of a sudden it's changed a little bit, and then Sammy's been hurt, Manson was hurt, so then all of a sudden things got mixed up a little bit, but. Yeah, I mean, you'd like to see a little bit more continuity. You'd like to see a little bit more, and I'm not saying that's their fault. I think circumstances led to that, and once you're in the 30s right now, next thing you know, you're gonna blink and you're in the 20s. You know what I mean?
It goes quick. It goes quick.
So you got to figure out what works, what doesn't work, and that's what Bednar talked about yesterday about Mikko playing center, and he kind of said it in that aspect of. Okay, trying to see what we have and trying to see what we might need or not need, and might as well do it now. You know what I mean? Instead of
I 100%
in a
agree
panic
with that.
mode,
Yeah.
Where God, we're down 3-0 in a series. What do we do? You know what I mean? So
You got to have some options on the table.
you got to make sure you look at things beforehand, and those guys are so good, so smart. Like Mikko's of the world, they can figure it out and get out there from one game to another and play center and wing. Because he knows it's just not going to be. Forever, you know what I mean? And they're just trying to figure things out. And then you'll see.
I mean, but you're definitely taking notes, right? You moved
100%.
Mikko away from McKinnon, then McKinnon scored 2 goals.
Fair point.
You want McKinnon to shoot more, that might be a button you can press.
Yep.
Which, that's all coaching is pressing the right buttons, right? So
100%. And it's lucky here because they got a lot of buttons to push, right? A lot of nice buttons. Could be teams where there's not a lot of buttons to press. You're looking left and right, and you're like,
well, just going to have to live with it. We'll see. We are kind of winding it down today's show. Yeah, Ivan, another name that who knows where things shake out on the forward side, too, with that depth. Nothing against those guys, but I don't expect an Inola or a Poland or a OO or whoever to be in the Avs lineup come end of the season.
I'll second that. As I keep coughing, I'll second that.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Anyway, I think that's about all I got for today. So we're going to wrap this thing up. We're going to try to get home.
Tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, afternoon. But who knows? It might be blizzarding tomorrow. Things could get interesting. We'll see exactly how things shake out tomorrow. But make sure you tune in tomorrow pregame, watch along postgame, one way or another. We'll have it for you. Also, go check out all of our stuff from last night's game. I still need to post my review because I'm slacking today. Instead of posting at 7 in the morning, I got to post it this afternoon. So, yeah, it is what it is. But you'll be able to check that out where I'll call Mackenzie Blackwood his real name and not Darcy Kemper this time. We appreciate y'all. We are out of here. This has been the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by Bet365.
We all silly like the mayor.